Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us with the K through 12 Civil Leadership interview this month with our fantastic guest, Dr. Bree Evans-Santiago. And I would like to ask her a question, though there will be many. Dr. Bree Evans-Santiago, how was your day today?
Oh, thank you. It actually was great. Living in California lately has been amazing. Lots of sunny weather. So it's
Exactly.
been really good. It's nice to
Uh,
get out in these times.
Definitely now, yes. I can understand. Well, everyone, you need to know that Dr. Santiago presented a fantastic presentation. That's the second time, and I hope you're counting the number that I say the word fantastic. But she presented a presentation along with her colleagues at the National Association for Multicultural Education Conference back last fall. And it was really a good way for us to understand how we can better ourselves in the education classroom, as well as in the education administration area, as well as in our love for our children and our students. So we're
Mhm.
asking her to come today to share her experiences with you. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go. We will touch on three areas today. One will be your experience. We also want to know more about your book. And then we'd like to
Mhm.
ask you to give some advice to educators out there and high school students who may be interested in joining the field. Okay,
Absolutely.
okay,
Okay.
here we begin. Dr. Santiago is an assistant professor at California State University, Bakersfield. She's also the department chair for teacher education in her location. And prior to this position, I understand you were also an educator in the classroom?
Yes. Actually, I've taught um, all levels, if you're including substitute and after school teaching, up to eighth grade. So preschool up to eighth,
Wow.
but mostly focused on fourth through eighth grade for the
Okay.
what is it, almost 20, 15 years?
Oh my
From
gosh.
2001 I began teaching. So however long that was before I started in academia.
Well, that's amazing because you don't even look like you could have been teaching for all that time. That shows me how much fun you were having. Very good. Thank you. Well,
Yeah,
we know one aspect of K 12 or K through 12 civil leadership has to deal with culturally relevant pedagogy, which is known as CRP. And I understand that you have an interest in this area. Can you tell us how you became interested in CRP?
absolutely. So it didn't come to me right away. So I will go back to when I was teaching in Washington, D.C. It was just a few years of my life, just transitioning, moving on, experiencing something new. And moving from California to DC, completely opposite coast, completely opposite
Yes.
ways of doing things. And um, it was a huge eye opener for me because I was used to being the Black woman in the room. I was used to being um, in charge. It's about what I say. Mama said this is what we do. And I ended up actually teaching at Maya Angelou Public Charter School. So it was an amazing
No.
experience. Yes. And when I was there, something that was so great about it was that these were second chance students. These were students that are like, I want to finish and I want to do the best that I can and succeed. Well,
Mhm.
for me, my mentality was still that mama said you need to do, well, they've already dealt with life. They've already gone through so
Yes.
many things. So me coming to them in that way, I learned real quick that that wasn't it. And
That's
so it helped me to start reevaluating my teaching style and thinking about what else I needed to do to reach my own, to reach the kids that grew up like me, to reach kids that I should directly connect with. And so that started my journey of starting to think about what that meant to really learn and understand culture. The rest of that journey happened when I began my doctoral program, um, examining my own identity,
Mhm.
understanding that my intersectionalities influenced my passion, influenced my research, influenced the way I taught. And so
Mhm.
that's where that journey began. And from there, I've just been nonstop digging in and trying to figure out what else I can say and do to be able to make sure that our teachers do the best that they can for our students to make sure that they get more support than I was able to give them when I started,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know?
Yes, that's amazing. I know exactly what you mean. I grew up in Washington, D.C. when I was little, and I do understand about CRP. And that one main component, you said you examined yourself, and
Mhm.
that's something that I notice it courses through a lot of the discourse when it comes to this. And it also is found in a lot of scholarly work when we talk about CRP. It's that examination of yourself before you
Yes.
can begin to understand someone else that's dissimilar. So I like that you said that, which leads us to our question.
Sure.
How do you describe your unique self when asked to describe yourself?
So it has changed. And actually, I've had this conversation with um, people throughout my life where they said, "How can it change? You are who you are." But it does change. The more you learn about your identity,
That's
the more parts of your identity might come to the front. I may also, like for instance, I identify as Black, and there was a time where I identified as mixed.
right. Okay.
I still can, right? So it's not
Yeah.
saying that it's not there. My grandmother is white. She is white, and I acknowledge that, and I love her no matter what. But at the same time, I'm Black. And it took me time to learn and understand that, right? So as progression within my life occurred, I was able to identify differently. So I identify as a Black, queer, or pansexual woman, um, cisgender woman. And so the queer part has also changed. I actually had gone through a part of my life where I dated men for a second, but then I married a woman, and I was with the woman for a long time, divorced, and then remarried
Oh,
to another
wow.
woman. And 5 years ago, my spouse actually transitioned. And so
Oh,
now I'm married to a man.
oh, wow.
My life is actually just kind of full circle as far as like my sexual identity goes. And so
Okay.
right now, because of what I've learned and developed through my own identity of being queer and of being a part of the LGBTQ plus community, right now we could pass as a heterosexual couple,
Yes.
but I will never deny or not acknowledge my queerness or my journey within the LGBTQ plus community, because my partner is trans and my partner's life is not easy in society. And so I'm very proud of that. And I like to make sure that I mention my identity for that purpose, because it has changed. And who knows, what 20 years from now will be, but I've definitely gone through some various identity shifts, but I'm very proud of what I've learned on my journey.
Yes.
And I'm proud of how I identify and all my intersectionalities that come with that.
That's amazing. That's an amazing journey. Do you know everything that you're saying? What I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is the comfort, the love, the natural harmony that you would bring to students and to be able to bring to educators who don't have an understanding of the population or their students who are identifying with themselves in these various ways and who are, really confounded and confused, and they need some assistance. So I, for one, want to thank
Thank
you,
you.
and I extend gratitude to you for being open enough to share that, because if we don't have people like yourself that are willing to share your experiences, then what do we expect our students to be able to do, and where are they going to go?
Absolutely.
Yes. So
Absolutely.
thank you very much. You answered two questions in one, actually. Okay. So here's the next question. What has been your most fond experience in being an just open practitioner of
Mhm.
inclusion for all people?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say two. I hope that's okay. But my
It's
first, of
okay.
course, is editing this book, being a part of this process and being able to put together stories from so many amazing teachers, to
Yes.
be able to share with others. It was an amazing experience. So that is something that I will cherish forever. My very first book, opening that box and saying, "This is me. That I did this." So that's important to me. And I made that journey for myself. I needed to publish, and that has been an area that was hard. And so I said, what can I do? And I started working and figuring it out and connected with an amazing publishing company, and put together amazing peer reviewed work that is utilized in classes and courses. And so I'm very proud of that. But another thing I'm proud of is witnessing my students become woke, seeing them develop, and to be able to come back and say, like, do you know that I see this injustice over here? Or I'm thinking about this and that, or I was biased right now. I need to think about what I said. I'm like, oh my goodness. So those awakening moments for me, that it makes it worth every moment of struggle throughout my teaching career to see those light bulbs come on and that passion come out. So
very good. Light bulbs, when you said it, that's what I was seeing. And that's what I thought too when you said it. That's so great. I understand. So I'll skip around in our lineup that you actually brought some other individuals and you shared your idea and your initial thought for this book with some colleagues. Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like to write with individuals who were different from yourself and they had different experiences, but yet you put it all together and you made a fantastic product?
Yes.
So this is that much.
Well, just 14 chapters, 11 authors. That's a lot.
It is. You're right.
And we did it fast. We did it within a year and a half.
Yeah, that was fast.
Yeah, it was fast. But what I loved about all of it, there were men, women, Latinx, Black, white. That might have been it for demographics, but represented Texas, Illinois, California, and Kansas. So different states and different, so it was neat to have various perspectives. And through all of that, there were connections, because we're about the same work. We believed in the theme of vulnerability, and to share your story and to be able to say, this is where I messed up. Yeah. But look, let me show you what you can do to make it better, to where you don't have to do what I did. Like, save room for your next mistake. Let me help you with this one, Exactly. And so that was a common theme throughout. And so everybody utilizing their own research and their own quote unquote mistakes to be able to use that growth mindset and help people learn and to move forward was awesome. But there was a time, so the title of the book actually changed, and that was through some discussion, and it was pretty strong. So there was some discussion because I was the only Black woman represented in the group. There was a Black male, but for me, it being mine, and then knowing I was using the Sankofa bird and thinking about my African roots and what that meant to me, and to be able to share this within my book. For me, my Southern culture was, my great grandmother grew up in Louisiana. So we have like those Southern roots in us. And so to me, the first title was more of like, do as I say, not as I did. Like, listen here, child, like, listen to what I'm telling you, because you don't want to do what I, do as I say,
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so that was my first perspective. And that's what I wanted for this title. Mm-hmm. And we're close to the end. Like, it's time to like submit. We're done. And I get an email. And one of my colleagues says, I'm really struggling with this title. And I'm like, how dare you, in my heart, this is my baby. But it really helped me to look and to think about my audience and to think about the bigger picture, and so I had to grapple with that. And I had to think about, how can I still keep me and keep my culture and keep myself in this book, but still make sure I reach more people that may be offended, going back to DC days, where I'm telling you what to do. You may not receive that well. And so I had to take a step back again and receive that from my colleague. And then a couple of people chimed in, and I said, I have to really, it took me about 4 days to really dig through this and think about it. And then we went through a couple titles, and then finally this came out, and it's so much more open. And it's also still saying that you have to be about justice to be able to think about this work. And that was still there. And so that was important to me. And then having that Sankofa bird reference still kept me within this book and within the title, and so I was okay with that. But yeah, so there was some grappling and some discussion, but it was a great growth period, I think, for me and for all of us. And there might be something that I write like that connected with my culture, but I would also know and understand that it might be people within my culture that read it and get it, right? And so
Exactly.
thinking about my audience for this, I wanted everywhere. I wanted people in Kansas to read it and be okay. I wanted
Yes.
people in Texas to read it and be okay. And so I had to think about that. And it's okay. We have a great title and a great cover. And I think that it's been doing well. So
Yes, I think you're right. I like the title as well, because you know what it says to me is that if we can all agree on the fact that all of us make mistakes, no matter our background, socioeconomic, gender, ethnic, nothing about who we are says that we cannot make a mistake. So if we
yeah,
can agree that we all make mistakes, we can also agree on how to fix them. So
yes.
I think your book does that. Oh, that's great. Again, you have just answered many of our questions. So this is wonderful. Let me ask this question, since we're on the topic of the book right now. Can you share with us how a person would be able to obtain a copy of your book, or even a lot of your books, let's say for a classroom or for a school? What can we do, and in what formats do you offer these books? Because I understand it's not just one format.
Right. And so I was really excited about that, actually. So we'll talk about that first. So there is an
Okay.
ebook option, and then there is also a paperback. I think you could purchase the hard copy. It's, of course, a lot more expensive to get the hardcover versus the paperback or ebook, but they're all available. The ebook has links. So there are videos, examples, or what have you as you're reading, because it's in a practitioner sense. So it's just us talking and us helping you see and understand from teacher to teacher, this is what's going on, and let's help you get there. And look, click here, and here's a video of a news, story that talked about a different event that happened. For instance, there was one with an example about students being suspended for their hair.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and so there's a chapter in there talking about our appearance, and as in a social justice perspective, what does that mean? Being a model, but then also standing up for what you believe in, but then, with the way you look or what have you. And so there are examples in there where you can click and just view. So lots of stuff like that. And even in the paper copy, the paperback, you're able to have the links. Everything is listed there. So it's still there. It's just a different format. Both are the same price. And you could purchase them through Myers Education Press, an amazing publishing company that actually supports the National Association of Multicultural Education. So that's where we met, actually, one of the large sponsors there. Yeah,
Sense.
and exactly. And so that publishing company is award-winning and it's doing great. And so the website for that is myersEdPress.presswarehouse.com.
Okay.
And you can also purchase it on Amazon, and email me. I have plenty. I can do signed copies or something, and we could figure that out as well.
That would
I
be
don't mind doing that.
wonderful. Okay, that would be actually
Yeah.
quite wonderful, maybe for a gift. Dr. Santiago, perhaps?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Don't forget, everyone, take a good look at this link, and definitely rush to learn more information, because I think you would find that the book would give you joy and understanding, which we need
I
right
hope
now.
so.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Well, I have more questions for you. Are you ready?
Yes, let's do
So
it.
all of your experiences have really helped you to be able to give a lot of information to those who are just uncertain about education in general. We saw
Mhm.
during the advent of COVID-19 last year that, first of all, retention was already an issue for the
Yeah.
education community. And now after COVID-19, we see that there are still retention issues because a lot of people have left. And you
Yeah.
still have some high school students out there who are thinking about entering the education field, and
Mhm.
typically new teachers are always excited. They have bright new ideas. They want to come in and change the world. So a segment of what we do also is to kind of appeal to our student families and also ask them questions, and we try to get answers for them so that their children will be able to follow the right paths in school. What advice would you have for a high school student thinking about entering the education field, and perhaps they're already in a teacher education program in their high school? What would you like to say to them?
Thank you for caring. Thank you for thinking about someone who has influenced you throughout your life. Teachers are a big part of students' lives throughout. And if you're even considering or thinking about teaching, it's because you really, really care about the growth of students. And so if it's in your heart already and it's even a little bit there, I'm asking you to consider and to think about it, because there's something there that can develop and grow and build. And we need special people. We need people that have that heart and that are willing to put in the work. Teaching isn't always easy. It's
Mm,
not.
mm,
And especially in pandemic, it's not an easy time, but the reward, oh, the reward. it's it's immeasurable. It's something that you can't even really define, because it gets to happen over and over again. You'll continue that gratification until you're done, and that's
mm,
an amazing career. People can get burnt out and never go, and work every day for the rest of their lives and not love what they do. But as long as you're in this field and you love it, then you're able to continue to change and move with whatever is out there and continue to make a difference with people in your community and with your students. So consider it, think about it, learn around you to see what gives you that passion, so you could think about what you'd even want to teach. It may not even be a specific content area. It might be a lot of content areas, or it might be coaching, or it might be something else that's involved with that teacher component. But don't give up on that feeling, because it's there for a reason. And so if you have that feeling and that sense of care, um, I encourage you to think more about it.
oh, that was a wonderful response. Thank you so much. Not only did you just give them some advice about not letting go of a passion that they might hold true, you also just
Mhm.
gave them a few different areas to understand that not every educator goes to school just to learn how to teach in the classroom. So
Mhm.
that was a good point. Thank you. And I'm sure some students are not aware of that. Okay, thank you so much for that. We need
Of
more
course.
educators. Okay, the next
Yes,
question
please.
I have. As now I've asked you what you would say to a high schooler, but now my question is, what would you like to say as a former educator and also now a
Mhm.
leader of educators? What would you like to say to a teacher who is working, a veteran teacher, a teacher who just started? All of our
Mhm.
teachers, when we're talking about today's social and diverse climate in the United States, what advice would you give to someone just trying to figure out how to bridge the cultural divide in their own classroom, be it between the students or between themselves and their students?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, First, I believe in vulnerability. And I have to give credit to Brene Brown for that, because I read a lot of her books
Okay.
thinking about that space of when you step into a position of being a leader, sometimes you have to, and that helped guide my book too. You have to be okay with saying, I don't know the answer. You have to be okay with saying, let me figure it out, or I messed up. And
Okay.
that's hard.
Oh, it
That's a
is.
really hard space to be in. It kind of leaves you, open.
Open.
And
Mhm.
as leaders, as educators, I think it's really important for us to think about that. Also, as far as connecting our students and connecting with the students, we have to learn about each other. We need to celebrate assets and communicate and listen, pay attention to the small things, to be able to understand how we should teach and how we should connect and hang out together in the class, and what activities to do in the class based on who our students are. That goes back to CRP. That's
Exactly.
understanding our culture. It's understanding who our students are and what they bring, and making it a part of our lives, a part of our curriculum, not just a one-day thing that's celebrated, you know. No, it's a part of it's integrated within, and that's really important that we continue to push toward that, because that's how our students make it. That's how they thrive. That's how they live. They get access. They have a voice, and we want to make sure that we provide that for them. And it's not from the books, right? It's
Exactly.
It's not from the books. It's beyond that, and it's not just from one teacher. There's that idea behind hidden curriculum. Who's really teaching your kids? The bus driver, the first person they see when they walk in the room, that staff member, that custodian, you know, all of these people are part of our students' lives. So we need to make sure that we're continuing to give them that support and validity within our classrooms and within our schools.
Dr. Santiago, are you suggesting that as a classroom teacher, they don't have to know everything right away all by themselves?
If they do, then I need them with me, because I'm still learning, you know, 20 years later. So if they have that formula, please share, because you need to get like the Pulitzer Prize or something right now. But
exactly,
yes, there's it's a constant growth process, and you will always learn something new. And if you're not, then you should question what you're doing and why you're doing it, because maybe you're stagnant for a reason. And
that's
you
a good
know,
point.
and
Self-evaluation, going back to self-evaluation, I would say pick up the book Mistakes We Have Made and try to read a little bit, reason and collaborate with those around you, and see what you can come up with. Exactly. This is great. Okay, now I'm looking here at my nice list to make sure I ask everything that I said I might ask. I have another question for you. If you were involved in a situation where, let's just say, you wanted to teach something new in your classroom, and you had an understanding of CRP, you understood that you needed to be able to appeal to all of the students in the classroom at the same time. What would you say to a teacher who maybe needed to go outside of themselves to find more information? Would you suggest that they band together with other people in their school, or should they look online for resources? Should they talk to the students? What would be an ideal collaborative situation for a teacher that you think might be in that type of position?
Yes, so two parts to that. First, remember that when we depend so heavily on people that might represent a group or a culture, when we depend on them so heavily to give us the information, we're not doing the work ourselves. You know, and people get taxed from that. We are taxed when people keep asking us, how do we do this? What book should we read? Where do we go? What do we do? So what I would say is, first, pay attention to who you're asking and why you're asking. Is there something that you could have done on your own to learn or to think about first? Maybe you don't ask what movie we should watch to support this, but you say, is this a good movie that I've, you know, researched or found? Do you think this would, you know, and so that shows that I did the homework myself. So I think that that's an important part, but also not just I do the homework, right? Let's do the homework. Let's collaborate together. Let's find answers. And a good way to do that is like reading, you know, small group professional developments, or even thinking of projects together. I know right now there are so many webinars available.
Don't mention it.
You know, for types of learning, but we also don't want to get burnt out. And so to just think about steps, create a goal. What's our goal for this year? What's our goal that we can just continue to work on and do it a little bit at a time? I really believe I work a lot with improvement science in education. And that's really a great process because it's a cycle. You take a goal and an aim, and then you start. Question, do you think we could do that? Let's try it. Let's do a little bit. Let's see how it goes. Let's look at that data. Okay, that worked. Let's add a little bit more. And then you just continue with these cycles. And I think that if more of us in education continue to just try a little bit, something we have with big policymakers and ideas is, boom, let's just change everything right now. all at once, right?
Yes,
And
exactly.
then we as teachers have to do it all, and then boom, a new thing. So in schools with teachers, let's do small. We know that maybe there's a big thing, but what can we do a little bit at a time to continue to increase our learning and continue to change the climate or the environment within our school settings or what have you. So it doesn't happen overnight, but we have to do the work. And there are a lot of resources out there to be able to find some answers. And so it's definitely not impossible, for sure. So that's what I would say.
Thank you so much. I like that you are helping people to understand that it is okay to take the initiative in yourself and not always look for the education trends to feed what you're doing. So that's
Absolutely
wonderful. Okay, well, I guess on that note, you have given us a very good way to segue to our ending. I want to say thank you so much for building one of the resources you just mentioned. Thank you so much for putting it out there. And we are going to make sure that we promote it and try to get people to get interested over here on this side, because we're over here on the East and in the South. And yeah, it could definitely help benefit. And thank you for being a positive role model. Thank you so much.
Very much.
You're
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time to even just talk about teaching and social justice and changes that we can make as teachers. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for being humble. It means a lot.